After waiting and waiting during the offseason, week 1 is finally finished. And what better way to conclude the week than to give the recap, the game changers of each match, and let's update the power rankings. So I'm not even going to waste your guys' time. Let's get right into the video, starting with the Thursday night football fantasy game, which was Coach Daigle and the Toronto Mystics taking on Coach Ball and the Boston Baller brand. This game was an upset. I mean, the number 6 team taking on the number 8 team, and somehow the 8 team pulled it off. It was a cluster of things that happened for Coach Ball. You know, Christian McCaffrey not playing Monday night definitely didn't help, but it was already over by then. I think the Sunday night football, the Lions and the Rams game really did a toll on that whole entire game. I mean, you should be looking at each player's individual games, you know, each player on each team and what their point totals were. But you got to give it credit. If you look at any one of Coach Daigle's team players playing on Sunday Night Football, they went wild in an overtime thriller. And, you know, James Ball, he did have the quarterback. He had Jared Goff. But let's get to the game changer. That was Jameson Williams. He wins game changer of the match. Because without a doubt, Jameson Williams had to have been a play just to contain Goff. But he didn't just contain Goff. He outright beat him and murked him in a terrible way, allowing the other players like Cooper Kupp, who went off for like 25 points, and David Montgomery, who went for like 15, including a touchdown in overtime. It gave Coach Daigle the edge. And at the end of the day, it didn't matter what Coach Ball had. If he had McCaffrey or not, he was losing that game. Shout out to Coach Daigle. Shout out to my prediction, because like I said, I called that upset. And, you know, it was a good Thursday night football. Let's get to the next game. We're trying to go quick with these recaps, all right? Friday night football. This was the game, Ethan versus Chris, a.k.a. Coach Diaz versus Coach Bigby. Number 1 team, Atlanta Juicers, versus the number 7 team, New York 67ers. And it was exactly what I predicted. I think that Coach Bigby actually could have lost this game. I think that it was definitely a game that could have been lost. He just wasn't going up against an opponent that was going to win. I mean, you look at this. Who would have thought that Jerry Jeudy would be Coach Diaz's best wide receiver this week? But somehow it happened with Garrett Wilson, with Marvin Harrison Jr., who I said, not a great pick, and Brandon Ayuk, and somehow Jerry Jeudy comes out on top at all 4 of them. That's never going to be a recipe for success. No matter what Josh Allen wants to do and what hero he wants to be, it wasn't enough to beat Coach Bigby. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Anthony Richardson went crazy. But the game changer of the week, or the game changer of the match, has to go to Saquon Barkley. I mean, he was the guy who played Friday night, who got Coach Bigby's team rolling with 32 points off the brink. I'm not going to lie. 32-point cushion off one player before Sunday football? Call it a wrap. That game should be locked in. The number 1 team, of course, shows why they are, and the number 7 team, what you going to do when you're playing the number 1 team, you know? This is the 1 o'clock game, so no one really cared to tune into this one, but it was the number 9 Las Vegas Hurdlers under Coach Mills against the number 10 Dallas Laxbros under Coach Kwanzaa. And this was exactly what we did expect. I want to say Thursday night football really had an influence on whether I actually thought the 10th seed could pull it out. I thought, that he could have done it. Did it happen? Clearly not. You should be looking at the teams and their points. The Las Vegas Hurdlers obviously had one key piece who will be determined the game changer of the match, as well as Coach Kwanzaa, who Xavier Worthy was cooking early. He beat out Patrick Mahomes the same way Jameson Williams did against Jared Goff in the other upset game. So honestly speaking, there was, you know, some legs to stand on to the theory that maybe Coach Kwanzaa and Dallas Laxbros could have pulled it out against Coach Mills. But game changer of the match has to go to Jaden Reed, all right? Because when Thursday night football happened, everyone was like, can Coach Mills win this? Are we going to see a change in the rankings? Can Gilchrist actually pull off the win? And Jaden Reed had to come in Friday night and say, look at this. We're not doing this. We're not listening to any of this. This is the number 10 seed for a reason. Let's do our job. Jaden Reed putting up 30 points. A team with Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Reed would be the one to lead the team and bring them back to, hey, we should win this game. We have no reason to lose this game. Coach Mills pulls out the win in what I expected and what most of y'all expected. So let's just go to the next game. Sunday night matchup of the Los Angeles Flames, new team, new stadium, taking on the Washington kickball team, number 2 versus number 5. I'm not going to lie. This game was probably the most exciting, most exhilarating game of the week, only off the fact that even when down, the Los Angeles Flames just has a bunch of players who can boom at any moment. Devon Achane can boom at any moment. The 2 quarterbacks on Los Angeles combined for 200 rushing yards. That's insane on its own. I will say a last-minute adjustment, Terry McLaurin came in instead of Stephon Diggs, almost costed the Los Angeles Flames to win because C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins on that other end, they were balling. Pitts, touchdown very early in the game. Isaiah Pacheco led his team off. Jordan Love did what he was supposed to do. I mean, everything was good for Washington kickball team until the Tyreek Hill 80-yard touchdown, which is why he is the game changer of the match. Once that touchdown happened, everything started to swing. Zamir White had an almost no-show game. And, a 4 o'clock slate that was pretty much nip and tuck until the very end. Not only that, Jahmyr Gibbs Sunday night against Puka Nacua Sunday night. And, it's sad to say Puka Nacua did suffer an injury and went out in the first quarter. And he was balling. And it actually looked like Coach Luther could maybe turn the tables and win the game. Fortunately, Puka gets hurt. Jahmyr Gibbs, he does actually a good job. He puts up 15 points to secure the win. But this was a lot closer than it may have looked being a 20-point blowout. This was a really close match that at the end of the day, an injury somewhat influenced it. I still think Los Angeles would have pulled it out. Coach Fitzgerald knows what he's doing. He still stays with his record of now 8-0 against Coach Luther and 5-0, or 8-1, my fault, and 5-0 in the Dynasty era. Let's go to the next game. And now the final game of the week and the only prediction that I got wrong from the last video. Coach Montague and the Vice City Business was not able to get their first win under that new name and new rebrand against Philadelphia Frauds. Okay, I thought maybe he could have done it. Philadelphia came to play. They definitely did. And you know who came to play with him? We're going to get you a second. We're going to give it a second before we mention that. We're going to let you see the teams and the point values that each one of them had. But look, I don't know what to make of this. I thought number 3 seeded Philadelphia Frauds were going to struggle against Coach Montague. It didn't work that way. The quarterbacks for Coach Montague did not play up to what I thought they would have played up to. The 4 running back scheme, thought it could work. It almost kind of did, then it didn't. And at the end of the day, this team was always down. Philadelphia did a good job of making sure they were up every second of the way in this game, up to the very end. And if it wasn't for this guy, Joe Mixon, game changer of the match, he proved a lot of doubters wrong. I have no doubt in my mind that Coach McCaskey was getting insulted, ridiculed, probably calls and getting laughed at when the mention of Joe Mixon's name came up in any trade negotiations. I remember even me myself talked about, hey, you need a running back. And he was like, no, y'all must have forgot who Joe Mixon was. Because honestly, he has top 5 back potential. And he proved it. 150 yards rushing in a game where he's going up against the number 4 Vice City Business. He needs to bring his A game. And what did he do? He brought his A game. And I got to give him credit for that. Philadelphia, I'm not questioning you guys anymore. I think it is clearly you belong up in that top 3, undoubtedly. So you know what it's time we got to do now that we're talking about that? Let's go to the live updated power rankings to see exactly where every team fits after week 1. And you should be seeing it right now, and I'm going to be real. The top 3 solidify themselves as the top 3 teams in fantasy football as of right now for the JPDL. Atlanta Juicers 1, Los Angeles Flames 2, and Philadelphia Frauds 3, all getting their wins in week 1. This is where we get to a little twisted, a little tricky spot, okay? Because 2 teams lost, and yet somehow, Washington kickball team goes ahead of Vice City Business. Why? Like I said in my earlier statements, I think that Washington kickball team, they just gave more fight against the number 2 ranked team than Coach Montague and the Vice City Business did against the number 3 rated team. Things can change. Things can shift depending on the matchups in week 2. I just think that Coach Montague never had a chance to win that game. We knew very early on that Coach McCaskey was winning that. barring a miracle in Monday Night Football. But for Washington kickball team, it went down to the last couple players. And, you got to give them props for that. You got to give them credit for that. Then we go to number, I believe it should be 6, which we actually do have a switch up. Coach Daigle and the Toronto Mystics, they were able to pull out the win against the number 6 at the time team, Boston Baller Brand, who are now, as you can see, now number 8 in the standings. And this just had to go off the fact that, he got to win. He got to win in an upset game. He wasn't favored to win. He pulled it out. He deserves 1-0. Toronto Mystics deserve to at least be up in that 6th spot. Now, Coach Diaz stays stagnant because even though he lost the same way that the Boston Baller Brand lost, New York 6 and 7ers had the number 1 team, Atlanta Juicers, to deal with. I didn't expect them to win. I just expect them to show out. And, we saw a glimpse of what they could be. Some players that, could perform really well. Some players that didn't. But, Boston Baller Brand's performance this week was utterly disgusting, utterly terrible. C-Mac would have made it look better, but honestly, they should have won given their structure and given their history of being a winning franchise. The time might be ticking, but we're not going to get into that. Number 9 and number 10 stay the same, okay? I really wanted to put Las Vegas Hurdlers up at the number 8 spot and actually move Boston Baller Brand down to number 9, but it wasn't time yet, okay? At the end of the day, Las Vegas Hurdlers, they played Dallas Lax Bros. We can't give them credit going up. I think the only way a team will move up if they play Dallas Lax Bros and win is only if a team ahead of them loses. There's no way you gain stuff from playing Dallas, all right? And Dallas, keep doing your thing. We know where you're going at. We know where your mind's at. We see those picks in 2025. We see them. You're just going to have to deal with this year. Like I said, a lot of records will be broken in the wrong direction for Coach Kwanzaa. Now, I want to end this video off by giving you guys the schedule for next week's games because I think these 5 games over here, or actually over here, I think maybe. Look, it's going to be something. It's going to be something. I think this is really good, headlined by the 1 versus 2 Atlanta Juicers, Los Angeles Flames. What can be better than 1 versus 2 matchups ever? That's a game we're going to want to check in for because there's going to be a lot of power ranking movement after these games or these games. I don't know which side they're on. So I don't know what to tell you. I have my early predictions coming in, but I'm going to save that for a later video, one like last week's. Great week 1 of football. But there's one thing we can say. It's only week 1. There's a lot of JPDL football left, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves here, all right? We still got a long season, power rankings going up and down, wins, losses, everything, points for. By the way, Los Angeles had the most points for this week. Whoa, I said it. I show my bias again. There's a lot of football left to play, so let's go out there. Let's play it. Until the next video, I'll catch y'all on the flip side. Let's get going.